And today, my guest is the current Teacher of the Year for Northside High School in Columbus, Georgia, Christie Akers. And welcome, Christie. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me, Dr. Arnold. This is an honor.
Well, I don't know about the honor part, but it's a great way to end the spring break vacation, isn't it?
It is. I'm always happy to see you.
Well, good. Thank you. Can you tell us a little bit about the Teacher of the Year process you were recently involved in and how you were chosen and
Um,
some of the events and the Muskogee Educational Excellence Foundation? Boy, there's a mouthful. The
Meef, yes, it is a
celebration.
mouthful.
Yeah.
Yes. Um, so in Muskogee County, we have a really interesting process. So essentially, you are nominated by, well, at Northside, you're nominated by your peers. Other schools, I'm not sure of their process, but that's how it was at Shaw. That's how it is at Northside. And at Northside, you have to fill out a shortened version of the application that you'll do for Muskogee County, which is much longer. And it essentially asks you to talk about your like philosophy of education, challenges that you've experienced, your like biggest motivation. So it asks you to kind of cover your career, so to speak. And so we fill out a shortened version of that, and then our faculty reads the nominees' applications and they vote from there. Typically, it's like 3 people get voted on. And so this year I was lucky enough for that to be me, which was a complete shock. From there, we fill out the full application process. It ends up being like 9 pages, like 7 essays, 2 resumes, 2 different types of resumes. And you take your packet and you deliver it to the MEF people. And from there, they read all, I think it's like 53 schools, and every teacher submitted 9 pages. So they read it, they have a committee, and from there, the committee selects a top 10, which I was lucky enough to be chosen as top 10 this year. The top 10 is then interviewed by the committee, the board of MEF. And from there, they choose a top 3, which I was also chosen as top 3.
Well, those of us that know you are not surprised.
I was shocked. I've been shocked every step of the way. And then they do a classroom observation, which they've already done for me. And now it's like radio silence. We won't know anything until the gala, May 9th.
Well,
So
I know you're looking forward to that. And
I'm excited.
you get to invite your own people to sit at your table, right?
Yes, we did. We had to like go early and like buy tickets. And honestly, at the time, we didn't know if you were going to be top 3. You knew who was top 10. So
Yeah.
I knew I was top 10 when I bought tickets, but I was like, there's no way I'm going to go any further than this. So like I invited people, but I was like, I'm not going to win. So like, if you don't want to come, you don't have to. And now I like have a chance. And like my in-laws were like, they didn't come. It's like kind of late for them. They're like having some mobility issues. And so, and now I'm like, uh-oh. But maybe we think we can FaceTime them or something.
Sure. That would be great. And I'm sure that there'll be a video that the
Yes.
Meet people put out, so they won't be left out completely. So what are some of the criteria the judges use when they come to visit you?
Oh, so honestly, all of that feels it's a little bit of a secret. I don't really, I know that that only 2 people that visited me were teachers.
Yeah.
Everybody else is like community members. They tell us just do what you do, just do what you do on a daily basis. So I did that. And they didn't want a lesson plan, but they did ask questions, like ask me some questions about like what my students were doing, why we were doing that. They did ask the kids, because you know the kids will tell. So they
Oh,
did
yeah.
ask the kids, like, is this something y'all normally do? Which I think is fair. They're trying to see like, is this a complete showboat or is it real? They asked them like what kind of teacher I was, how did I make them feel in my classroom. So it seemed like they were very focused on like the relationships and the student experience.
Well, I'm glad they asked students. When I was wandering around classrooms at Shaw, one of the things that I did was choose my own days to do an observation, and nobody ever knew when that was going to be for that exact reason. I like to catch people doing something good. You know,
I remember that about you. I do. I remember that about you, that you would just come in our classroom and you would like just stand there. Sometimes you would join in the lesson if you liked it or knew something about it, and then you just pat us on the back and say thanks. And it always felt very supportive.
well, good. I'm glad it did. Now, talk for a minute, if you would, about your educational journey. Start with elementary school and then go as far as you can.
So I actually started my educational journey. I went to a private Christian school up in Jonesboro, Georgia.
Oh, yeah.
Mount Zion Christian Academy, which is now closed down, sadly. So I went through to that school through fifth grade. We moved down here. My family moved here the summer before my sixth grade year, and then I switched to public schools. And I went to Double Churches Elementary, Richards Middle School, Columbus High School. And then I've gotten my bachelor's degree in English literature from Columbus State, my master's degree to certify me to teach. So secondary English ed at Columbus State. And I'm on my last class of my teacher leadership specialist degree from Valdosta State.
That's great. Now, who was principal at Columbus High when you were there?
Arrington? Was that
No,
right?
that was Richards.
That's Richards. I know that Susan Bryant was the assistant principal when I was there.
And Ronnie Sheehan was the principal.
Sheehan. Yes.
Yeah,
I was flipping those two schools.
Ronnie is the guy that convinced me to leave band directing and go into administration. And I fought with him about it for 4 years and finally decided, okay.
Well, I'm grateful that you did.
Well, I am too. It was not a step I took willingly, but he convinced me of it. And, for a while there, I didn't know whether to curse him or thank him for it, but it worked out great in the end. So tell me what your current position is at Northside.
So I am currently an English teacher at Northside. So I teach AP Seminar, which is a new course to our school this year. And I teach mythology as an elective. And then right now, I do all of the new teacher mentoring for Northside. But
you get time off for that.
I get an extra planning period to do that, which is very helpful. And I've recruited 2 teachers who are willing to go through all the coursework required to be another teacher mentor. So I'll have some help.
You enjoy that, don't you?
I do. I really like mentoring new teachers. That was something when I started my career, I didn't know that I would like so much, but I'm an alternative certification teacher. So when you hired me, I had never student taught. And like my first day in the classroom was my literal first day in the classroom. And I was terrified. I didn't know what I was doing. And if I hadn't found Stephanie Fuerte, if I had not found her, I would not have survived it. I would not have made it. And I don't think Muskogee County had the programs in place when I started to really support, especially alternative certification teachers. That was not really a thing. Now it's all over the place because there's such a teacher shortage. But when just remembering how important Stephanie was to me and to my career trajectory, I actually left the classroom for a few years and became an academic coach, which I loved. And then an academic dean, which I did not love. But being out of the classroom really gave me the opportunity to mentor new teachers And when I went back into the classroom when COVID hit, I got settled back in the classroom after 6 years of being out. And once I kind of got my bearings again and realized I did know what I was doing still, I asked Mr. Richburg if I could take over the program because I thought it was a need at Northside.
Good, good, good. Well, you won't be surprised to hear that you didn't find Stephanie, she found you.
I mean, I truly I learned everything I know about teaching from
Well, there's
Stephanie
not a
Forte.
better person in the world to learn it
She's
from,
amazing.
is there?
Yeah, she's
I
amazing.
always love her matter-of-fact statements about.
Mhm. Yeah, our styles have evolved to be a bit different. Just our personalities are a little different, and you get your own teaching style.
Sure,
But I learned so much. I would go watch her teach on my planning period because I didn't know what I was doing. And so just to see somebody who is such a master at it, and to take notes and at least have a foundation that I could then make my own.
and
It
that's
was so
wonderful
helpful.
that you had
Yeah.
that opportunity to get that from her. So what are your strengths as a teacher?
So I think my strengths as a teacher is not actually related to English at all. I will never claim to be the grammarian. That's not me. I will never claim to be like the strongest content teacher on the hallway, but I'm really good at building relationships with kids. Um, and so I can get them to buy in. I can get them to work when they don't want to work. I can get them to pay attention when they don't want to pay attention because I can build a relationship with them.
So as a result, I'm guessing you have zero disciplinary issues in your classroom.
I would not say zero, but really I don't have a lot of issues. And when I
And
do have an issue, I can generally solve it without having to escalate it to, I mean, I can count since I've been at Northside 4 years now. I think I've written a kid up for excessive tardies because I've had to, and
right.
that's really it.
So what do you do about cell phones in your classroom
I'm
other than pray?
That's really it. That's really it. So I would not say that I have a great strategy there other than a lot of disappointed faces that I'll make at them or walking by and tapping the desk. But basically, I do teach upperclassmen, which does help. If I taught freshmen, my strategy would be completely different.
Yeah.
But I teach AP kids, which are pretty compliant little loveys, and I teach juniors and seniors. It is going to be harder to manage this towards the end of the year. It always is. But I generally just try to have a conversation about that our time together is valuable and like respect me and I'll respect you. So that kind of scenario. And then I do allow them, like if we're doing independent work, I'll say you can listen to your music or whatever. So I try to compromise with them because I find that they are highly addicted to
Oh,
these
sure.
phones.
Absolutely.
Um,
Most
but it's
adults
not
are too.
it's not perfect. It's not like every day there's a kid who's probably on their cell phone or sneaking their cell phone, or during independent reading time they have their book propped up and I know there's a phone there. um I just don't make it a bigger issue than it is. And when I'll walk by and be like, oh my god, your book look like, I try to make it a joke, like, oh my god, your book is so looks like your phone or something like that. And then then they'll be like, yes ma'am, and they'll just fix it. And I find that works better for me than being like fussing at them about it, because then they get defensive. But
Right.
it's the uphill battle.
Oh, yeah. My mother made me have my cell phone out.
Or it's my mom's calling me, can I answer? I'm like, oh my gosh.
Well,
So
if you answer, then I'll be calling your mom.
I know, right? Like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. They're
Well,
so used to being so connected,
oh,
and
I
their
know.
parents are too.
Yeah. Is that an issue with teachers?
You mean teachers like also being on their phones?
Yeah.
Or um it can be. Yeah, I think our culture is so connected.
Well,
Um
what I was thinking is I have seen not a lot, but enough teachers to make it an issue for me, who would tell their students, you can't have your cell phones out. However, if theirs
Oh,
rings, they go
yeah,
in the hall to answer it.
yeah. Well,
And
and
I'm,
I will say I had to navigate. It's hard. I have had a kid who their dad legitimately was in the hospital and the
uh-huh,
mom called and I was like, okay, answer that
sure,
call. Because I do want to like model what real life is like.
exactly.
And then when my dad was very sick, so this year has been really rough. And my dad was very ill and declining very fast from like August until he passed away in December. So I had my phone on me all the time.
Of
I
course
had my
you did.
watch, I had my phone. I had to because I was his power of attorney, I'm his primary caretaker. And I was just honest with my kids about that. I would
And
just
they
say, look,
understood completely.
they did. And they granted me a lot of grace because I was honest about it. And I said, I'm not answering the phone unless it's for like about him. And then that's an emergency. And then they were very respectful.
Yeah.
So
But when little Johnny's grandmother dies for the seventh time that semester, then you got an
it's
issue.
it's hard. Yeah. And I've had to say, now they don't see my cell phone on me because I don't have that issue. I don't have that need anymore.
Good.
But it's hard. It's hard on both ends.
What's the primary things that you want new teachers you are mentoring to learn from you?
Well, to learn from me, I mean, I hope that they learn empathy and I hope that they learn kindness, both for their students and for themselves. The teacher I started off being is not the teacher that I am now.
Well, thank
Um,
goodness.
I know. And, I do think that the way I can manage my classroom now is very different than 23, 24-year-old me, who was much closer in age to my students. And so I try to model for them how to have a successful classroom that does have procedures and expectations, but also gives space for being human. Like we don't have to die on the small mountains.
Don't major in minors.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's great. Now, what differences do you see in students between when you first started teaching and now?
They are different. They're really different. In some ways, I think I know like I am in tune with kind of the educational community, and I agree with a lot of the negative changes we've seen in students, like the lack of personal accountability and sometimes a lack of perseverance and grit that we would call it. But on the upside, I have seen a huge upswing in empathy, in cultural awareness. That is a huge difference from my initial teaching at Shaw to my teaching now. um, I don't have to tell kids that you shouldn't make jokes about somebody's culture. You shouldn't use inappropriate slurs or like that has really gone away for me.
Good.
Um, and before we read of Mice and Men or something like that, I don't have to have the talk about the language and why it's not funny. So that has been a huge positive difference that I've seen in my students.
Excellent. Well, I've noticed some of the same things that, and they're a lot more open and
Yes.
willing to speak out
Mm-hmm.
about things that I never would have said to a teacher. And if my mother had ever found out, then I may not have been back at school again. But uh, those differences, I think, are positive ones.
Yeah.
Um,
They will advocate for themselves much
oh, absolutely.
better than they used to. Sometimes you are, as a teacher, I'm like, okay, but let's just get it done. Like just,
Yeah, well, we have to
but
remember too that at that age, self-centeredness is a way of life.
it is. Yes, it is. And I tell myself sometimes daily, it's developmentally appropriate. This is what they
That's
should be
right.
doing.
That's right. That's good. What what is your favorite grade level to teach?
Um, well, so I really like sophomores. I've kind of stuck with sophomores a lot of my career. I feel that I've paid my dues on freshmen and
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
good. I'm good there. I like sophomores a lot and I like seniors. It's kind of, I think, the transition grades I don't love so much. Juniors, I feel like, I mean, I have some juniors in my mythology classes, but there's something about that transition year where they get their license, they get a job, that they start to feel very grown.
All
And
in
then
love.
freshmen just don't know what they don't know. But sophomores is a sweet spot because they know they don't have the pressure of the junior year yet. So they're a little more mature than freshmen, but not as grown as juniors. And then seniors, I really like because they're making really big, important decisions and they get so excited and you get to celebrate with them. So I like sophomores and seniors.
Well, good. That you know the difference in freshmen and sophomores, don't you?
It's just a few months, I know.
About 2.5 months. That's it.
It's just a few months.
But but intellectually, there is an enormous
It's a
chasm
huge amount of
between the
growth.
two. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like
So
every year my teacher friends that teach the freshmen are like, oh my God, this year, oh, next year, it's going to be so rough. And then they grow over the summer. And
of
then
course
I
they
think, oh
do.
no, I think this group's pretty good. Like, I think they're fine. So
Well,
they've done the hard work.
yeah, I discovered early on that I never paid attention to other teachers' negative assessments of students in their classes because the ones that misbehaved in their classes were never the ones I had any problem with. Well,
I think it's very teacher personality dependent. Like who you're going to gel with might not be who I'm going to gel with, or vice versa.
that's exactly right. So, if you were the queen of education and you could reach out your magic wand and solve one big problem in education, what would that be?
I think this is actually something I learned from you way back when you hired me as a baby teacher. Um, I wish that education was more customizable to students without putting that load on the teachers. Because we talk about differentiation and personalization, but then we graduate them to the same degree. They get the same diploma. And I think that we're really missing something there. Like, not every kid is going the same pathway or will move at the same pace. And so it's the one size fits all approach that I do not like. I wish I could change it.
Well, I agree with you 100%. And, I've always thought it was insanity that we expected teachers to individualize the educational process, but then we measured that
Yeah.
effectiveness of that individualization with a standardized test.
Everybody takes the same
So,
test, gets the same degree,
that's
but
right.
make it personal.
Yeah, that's right. And by the way, you can't look at the test questions.
Oh, right. Yeah, absolutely not.
Yeah. Well, we could go on about that, but how do we address the current teacher shortage and attract more young people to education?
I think we have to start treating teachers as professionals, not
Again,
only in our pay. Like, I shouldn't have to get multiple degrees to get a pay raise. I should be
or a
rewarded,
second job,
or a second job. Um, our pay structure needs some work. I should be able to get a raise after year 20, 21. Like, I shouldn't hit a salary cap there. Um, and then we should be treated as professionals in our workplace, by our bosses. And I mean, and then that goes out into society. But I think until we can mimic what people can get in the business world as far as pay structure and things like that, and just autonomy, it's going to be a hard sell to this younger generation.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it would be nice if you were paid commensurate with the good that you do for students. The problem is, how do you measure
How do
that?
you measure that? And I do, it's so difficult. It's funny, this year my students have been so excited for me in this teacher of the year process, and they were like, you get paid more now, right? You got a big pay raise for being Northside's teacher of the year or top 3 or whatever. And I'm like, no, you don't. Like, you don't. And they are flabbergasted at that. Like, well,
It's almost, do you remember Mark Twain's description of uh, his death? It was misreported that he had died. And he said, quite frankly, if it weren't for the honor, I'd just as soon not participate. Yeah. What do we do to specifically to attract more students besides money? How can we get more kids in there to education?
I think we have to, again, take a business approach and start selling the positives a little bit more. Because there are great things. Like, I left a corporate career, so like I understood what I was doing and taking, this route, and the positives of it are huge. So I think, number one, we need to support teachers better in their first few years of teaching. Like, we need a more comprehensive, like, teacher support program. And then also, I think we need to sell the positives that, yes, I could be making a lot more money in the corporate world, but like, the difference I'm making, I really do feel like my job is a purpose. I hate to be the cliche, it's a calling, because I think that we use that as an excuse to not pay teachers what we're worth. But the joy I have in helping my students and the long-term relationships I build with them, it makes the rest of it worth it.
Now, see,
And the summer off is good too.
well, of course, you rarely have the entire summer off because
No,
there's always
I'm
something.
committed a week already for
Yeah.
this summer, but the time off is nice.
And summers are shorter than they used to be.
They really are.
Yeah.
They really are. It feels that way.
Well, I want to make a suggestion to you about that. Talk to Jennifer Robinson in Harris County about her teacher cadet program and what she's doing to some of them are not going to be teachers. They're taking it because they want Jennifer to be the teacher.
Which, of course, she's great.
But she does do a great job of recruiting students that will eventually go on to be in the classroom. And I would love to see, I don't know if Muskogee County has anything like that anymore.
We do. We have that program at our school as well.
Oh, okay. Well,
it's actually right across the hall from me.
Well,
so
good.
We do have that program as well. And I know Jennifer's doing like super amazing things with hers.
Well, I will have to learn more about the Northside Teacher Cadet Program myself.
It's a good one.
Well, good.
Our students go to North Columbus for their hours and all of that. But yeah, our teacher, Miss Grizzard, she's built like some really good relationships there.
Wonderful. I am so happy to hear that. Now, what are you going to be doing in 5 years?
I wish I knew. I don't know. I think for right now, I'm going to stay at Northside as long as Marty Richburg is at Northside, much like I stayed at Shaw as long as Dr. Arnold was at Shaw. And then I'm not sure. I like teaching my students. I don't want to be the teacher that's too old to be teaching. And so I do think that maybe I'll work in like new teacher support or something, maybe. But I don't know. I really am glad to be back in my classroom and to have my own students. And we'll see what opportunities pop up.
Well, that's probably the best answer I've heard in quite a while. So that's good. That's great. Well, anything else you would like people to know about Christie Akers or Northside High School or about education in general?
I think that like you hear so much in the news and just like all the negatives of like kids and education, but like from where I stand, I think that our future is in good hands. Like my students are empathetic and kind, and I've had a really rough year as just a human. And they have gone above and beyond. Like they made me a care package on their own volition. They planned it, which, you know, for high schoolers, that's like, what? They planned it and arranged for Miss Hoffman to deliver it to me when I was out with my dad, and wrote me kind notes. And like, I think the kids are all right, as the saying goes. I think it's all going to be okay.
Well, see, things like that sort of restore my faith in humanity and in education.
Yeah, yeah, I'm
Well,
happy every day in my classroom. So,
wonderful. I am so glad to hear that. Well,
and thanks
Christie,
for hiring me, sir,
my pleasure.
all those years ago.
It worked out for the best, didn't it?
It did.
Well, thank you very much for your time today and agreeing to appear on the podcast. And I hope things continue to go well for you. Tell your husband I said hi, and I'll be seeing you soon, I'm sure.
I hope so.
All right. Thank you, Christy.
Thank you, sir.
Bye bye.
Bye.